Hello and welcome back. We are doing our schools panel this week on behalf of Texas Medical and Dental Schools Application Service, TMDSAS, here in Austin, Texas, in the Texas Health Education Service office. And joining us today are our veterinary schools to host this veterinary schools panel. Before we introduce them, I want to introduce you all to someone behind the scenes, Sulema Melendez. You may recognize her as the host of the Team DSAS office hours, and she will be working behind the scenes to grab your questions that you may have for our representatives from the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine and for Dr. Mays from the Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine. So, Salim, I'm going to send you into the background and allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Dr. Mays, we'll start with you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Glennon Mays. I do represent the College of Veterinary Medicine at Texas A&M today. I guess my official appointment is Director of Recruitment and Student Services. I'm housed within the Professional Programs Office here at our college. Um, I do come from a private practice background, so I'm very in tune with the current struggles that our colleagues in private practice are navigating through with certainly the COVID impact on their businesses. And actually, instead of seeing a decrease in business, perhaps in many instances, an increase in the demand for their services, consequently, an even heightened uh, need and a greater emphasis for associate veterinarians to enter their practice families. So I do represent a program that is, of course, quite historic. Been in the business of preparing veterinarians for their future careers for quite a long time. We do utilize our two teaching hospitals, our large animal and our small animal teaching hospitals, in helping our students become the best prepared possible for day one readiness into whatever career path they choose with a DVM degree. Additionally to that, we complement our students' preparation by having relationships with a number of colleagues in private practice so that their students can have an experience away from this footprint in College Station and gain experience and see how people might approach similar situations given different facilities, different circumstances in a variety of ways. So the other thing I'll add is that our current curriculum is a, a new addition we have implemented after quite a number of years of seeking feedback and input from participants around the state, whether those are stakeholders with some group of representation, perhaps a livestock producer group, for example, whether that's in other ag-related industries, certainly with colleagues that have recently or formerly employed our graduate veterinarians, from former students from our program, from current students in our program. All of that information was compiled over a, a quite lengthy process, and our new curriculum was unrolled actually just a little over 4 years ago. So the graduates from our new curriculum are now almost a year old, our first graduating class, as they graduated last May. And so the feedback that we've been receiving from our colleagues that have employed and engaged those new graduates has been extremely positive. So we're very confident that we do what we can do and need to do to prepare our students to become the best day one ready that they possibly can be. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Mays. Ms. Innes, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm Sarah Innes. I'm Director of Admissions and Student Services for the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine. We are the second now College of Veterinary Medicine in the state. And our focus really is on meeting the needs of rural regional communities of Texas in everything that we do. And then another aspect is access and affordability. So our school is focused on a distributed model versus a teaching hospital. And I'll go into more about that as we dive into the conversation. But mainly, our goal is to train veterinarians in all aspects of veterinary medicine, whether it's small, mixed, or large, and to put them in those areas by the time they graduate. So they're practice ready and ready to go into the field. A lot of our curriculum is hands-on. From week one, our students are actively learning in clinical and professional skill based teaching labs. And so every week they go through something new. By their second year, they're already learning how to do spays and neuters. So a lot of hands-on teaching and learning. We've modeled it a little bit after med schools and how students go out in rotation their third or fourth year. So our students will go out after their first through third year in didactic and clinical training. Their fourth year, they'll go out on rotations across the state. So very different model, very new, and we're just excited to be a part of the conversation, and we're excited to have students. One big thing that's going on our campus is we have ribbon cutting tomorrow. So that's from 2 to 3, and there's a live stream happening on our website. But we are just really excited to be here. And we just closed our second class cycle, and now we'll be opening up our third and come May 2nd. So, yeah.
All right. It's a very exciting time for veterinary medical education in Texas. So thank you both so much for taking the time to meet with us. As a reminder, this panel is we're here on your time. We're here to address your questions. Dr. Mays and Ms. Innes are here to answer any and every question you might have about preparing for veterinary school, what the overlapping similarities or differences are between the campuses, and the different outreach. And of course, we've just heard some information about their curricula and how those different philosophies of veterinary education pedagogy come into play. So this is your time. We are here until 2 o'clock to answer your questions. Before we do, we did want to show you a dashboard that Sulema will be preparing for us that kind of shows the growth of the veterinary application pool. It's a very exciting time for in opening a second veterinary school here in Texas, and this is definitely a call that you all have addressed. And so here we're seeing the entry year 2020 application cycle. So this is right before Texas Tech joined. And so we see here that there were 739 applicants coming into TMDSAS for veterinary school. And then entry year 2021, we actually saw an increase to 1,068 total applications for veterinary school. That's the first year of Texas Tech joining, and of course, some expansion that happened at Texas A&M. And then last application cycle, we saw 1,266 total applicants, which, of course, year over year is a huge increase. And we saw similar growth with the medical pool here at TMDSAS. But I think what a key takeaway here is that for veterinary applicants, it's becoming a little bit more competitive as the pool continues to grow. So that is my segue into our first question here. And this comes to both schools. For prospective applicants, which activities, internships, shadowing experiences would you suggest for applicants to get the most experience and be the most competitive applicant they can be? So what is the X factor of an activity that you all look for that really shows you that somebody's prepared for veterinary school?
I guess I'll go. All right. So for us, we're looking for quality experience over quantity. We really want students to hone in on what area of focus that they would be most interested in and gain that experience. But given that, with COVID and everything, there might have not been opportunities. And so thinking outside of the box, maybe there's some creative ways that they could look at internships or shadowing and base those activities. We're also looking at high school time and looking at lifelong experiences as well. So should a student not be able to get experience during COVID, we're hoping that they have known that this is the track that they want to be on and have been obtaining that experience from the get-go. Another aspect is we get a lot of questions about how many, what's the exact number of hours that we're looking for. And we don't really have a quota for that. We just ask that students look at what our mission is, the needs to meet those rural and regional communities of Texas, and align their experiences to that.
Dr. Mays, I think you might have a much different answer for veterinary applicants fulfilling certain hour requirements for Texas A&M, correct?
Well, there is a little bit of a difference, and there's also some similarities. We do require a minimum of 100 hours of veterinary supervised activity or experience. Those activities, as far as trying to advise or counsel or suggest to someone interested in applying to a veterinary program, I don't want to encourage, or I guess I would, let me say that a different way. I would discourage applicants from trying to fit what looks best on an application into a box. When I visit with students, pardon me, I suggest that they need to, or they should try to seek or follow their passion, their heart. Where are your interests? In addition to that, what's available? What is within your reach as far as experiences in the veterinary profession include? Not everyone, for example, is located in an area necessarily where they might be able to explore opportunities with a veterinarian in a research laboratory. Some people are, if they have those passion, if they have that interest in that passion and the time management to be able to commit to that type of an experience, then by all means, go see what that tastes like. Many times our applicants will have had opportunities to explore different types of experiences in clinical practice. And if those experiences are within sort of the platform of a companion animal practice, and that individual has an interest or is a little bit curious about what it's like to be an equine ambulatory practitioner, for example, again, if that's within that candidate's opportunity, then by all means, if that's what seems appealing or interesting, then we would encourage those candidates to take those opportunities as well. I'm presuming that these activities are referencing specifically veterinary hours of experience. And like Sarah said, our resume, or as far as we're concerned, the applicant's resume, I should say, began when that individual entered high school. And if those activities involving veterinary experiences go back to freshman days in high school, then certainly those can be brought forward and accumulate in the application documentation process with the additional hours that have hopefully continued to be evident throughout the educational process of the applicant.
Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Mays. I think it raises a one of the key differences that some of our TMDSAS applicants face when completing the veterinary application when compared to the dental or the medical application, and that is that your activities are actually covering your entire time from starting high school to the current to when you submit your application, and even beyond toward your planned enrollment in veterinary school. So for some of our non-traditional applicants, that may cover quite a bit of time. And so it's important to make sure that you have accounted for all of the time in order to complete the application, because we do have a chronology of activities that is generated. And in order to create that, you have to make sure that there aren't any gaps larger than 3 months. So I know for me, remembering what I did from high school would be somewhat of a struggle, but hopefully y'all are a lot more attuned with what you've been engaged in and keeping track of all of the activities you've undertaken. And most importantly, the names of veterinarians that you've interacted with and other veterinary professionals that you plan to use in the application. So thank you very much for bringing that up. Kind of our hot button question that comes up often out in the internet is a discussion about holistic review of applications. And so would each of you mind explaining how your school uses holistic review in evaluating applications? I think we've touched on this a bit, but I think we're early on enough to really dig into it.
Sarah, if it's all right, I'll take a stab at this one first.
Sure.
The holistic review process in our thoughts includes many aspects of whatever that individual's story happens to be. I would encourage everyone that's listening to these remarks from the representatives of both veterinary programs in our state to use that application as an opportunity to tell your story. As Enrique has already very correctly pointed out, the application process is extremely competitive. That's not new, but as more applicants are submitting and that pool is increasing in size, the competitiveness is certainly not decreasing. So whatever is about your story that you will want to include on that application is very likely to your benefit. Our review process would include things like, in addition to certainly grades, GPAs, those types of academic performance, scholastic aptitude, whatever those barometers might be, we will evaluate the applicant's employment history, whether they were having a job, part-time job involvement while they were taking semester courses, whether there are extenuating circumstances in their life. Life, of course, happens. There's an opportunity to, for example, consider if an applicant shares that, because of some family crisis or some life event, consequently, the OChem grade that I received in my spring semester of my junior year really isn't the best representation of my scholastic capabilities. Those types of comments, as well as, do you speak more than one language? Is there research experience in your portfolio, in your story? All of those kinds of events, whether those are community outreach events, maybe you've participated in or even helped coordinate a food drive, a blood drive, perhaps those leadership skill sets that you can demonstrate through being a participant, a member, or perhaps an office holder in student organizations, whether that's at the local level or regional or even national level, whatever those organizations might include. All of those kinds of events will be reviewed and will be considered provided the applicant shares that information on the application. So if you don't tell us about you, then we don't have the opportunity to, first of all, at least meet you through the application process, and then appropriately apply this holistic review to the application.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I think Dr. Mays brings up a very valid point. It's like, if we don't know what's on there, how, moving forward, we want to get to know you. And it's very important that you put everything on that application, all of your life experiences, attributes, your essays, your evaluation letters, knowing who's going to write your eval, and knowing that, they know your character, and so that they can write a great eval. We do a holistic review differently, where grades are blinded to our admissions committee, faculty, interviewers, everyone that would see that application except for myself and my dean, Dr. Descanio. So we base our review on your essays, on your academic curricular activities, on your leadership roles, on what veterinary experience that you have. And then we go into your interview process and evaluate that as part of the holistic review. So putting your best foot forward is putting everything on that application, working with TMDSAS on how to do that application if you have questions. Because we see a lot of applicants that aren't reviewed because they didn't fill it out accurately, or didn't know ahead of time how to do things. And so I would say, like, for our holistic review, even though grades aren't considered, everything else is. And so we see that through the whole process, and your application essays, experiences, everything that goes into it besides grades.
Thank you both so much for your thoughtful responses there.
One more comment. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ricky. Sarah, you're exactly right. The grades on each application, each student's grades, GPAs, are blinded to our selections committee review process as well. But certainly the academic piece is part of the overall review process. It's just that those grades, as you rightly pointed out, are not part of the consideration when that application document is being reviewed and evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. All right, we have started collecting some questions here in the chat, and we're going to go ahead and dig into this first one from Ethan. Are different types of experiences preferred, such as research at veterinary school, compared to an internship at a dairy or job at a private practice?
I'll go first. Yes. I wouldn't say preferred, but having a vast area. So we have 5 areas of interest by the time that you get to your 4th year. And one of them is One Health. And so if there's an aspect of research that you want to be a part of, we have opportunities, paid opportunities through the summer, internships, being a grad assistant, where you can work with our faculty. So I would say, yes, there are experiences that we look for and that we want to see well-rounded, but we also want to know, is dairy cattle your passion? That you have that experience and that you can talk about it in an interview. Ultimately, our goal is to see future colleagues in the DVM, and we want to know, do they understand what entails as a veterinarian, and can they show that through their life experiences?
Great, thank you.
So different types of experiences are, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Sarah just shared with you. I wouldn't utilize the word preferred. Again, as my earlier comments indicated, it's not to say that everyone has equal opportunity, whether it's a COVID-related environment or impacted environment or not. simply because where an applicant happens to have been located in their background experiences or even in their educational experiences going forward out of high school does not necessarily mean that everyone has the same access to the same experiences. So again, as I was mentioning before, whatever those passions are, whatever those interests are, your curiosity might be about in within your reach to gain those types of experiences, we would certainly encourage you to pursue, um, while taking care of your scholastic needs and being able to manage your time and your commitments because everybody's extremely busy. Certainly, if we were to say that a certain type of veterinary experience was preferred, then all of a sudden the next application cycle there's going to be multiple people that are trying to clamor to get that particular niche of veterinary profession experience. So uh, before you might be considered to have are looking at a huge buffet of different things people holding DVMs do. Those all of those entrees on that buffet might or might not be appealing to you. However, if you're curious about what broccoli tastes like, then maybe you already know what mashed potatoes taste like. So let's try a little broccoli. Enough of a sample so that you can truly evaluate if this is a career pathway that you might be interested in. And maybe that analogy will resonate with some of you, but I agree. I don't know that we would identify preferred experiences, but a variety of experiences as much as the applicant has time for, can commit to, in addition to their other commitments. And certainly, as I've said, that those experiences are something that is within their ability to establish that relationship. Thank you.
That analogy definitely resonated with me, Dr. Mays. All right, we've got a couple of more questions here. Our next question has to do with dual degree programs. Do you have dual degree programs that allow students to get both their DVM and MSc, Master of Science, if they want to participate in conservation work?
For us right now, we are working on dual degree programs. We are building a PhD program in One Health, and then we have master students from the graduate level, but no DVM, MSc dual degree programs as of right now.
We do offer a couple of program opportunities that are dual program degrees. We have for a number of years. I'm not sure how long, but we do have a relationship with the Mays Business School here at Texas A&M. By the way, no relation. So that a student can achieve a DVM degree and simultaneously graduate with a master's in business. With that commitment, there is an additional year, so that student would take a gap year, so to speak, from the DVM program to focus on their master's studies, and then rejoin the class actually that entered behind them in the DVM program. So they would graduate after a 5-year commitment as opposed to a 4-year DVM program. The other program that we have is a combination or a dual program engaging the veterinary program with epidemiology and public health. And so those are the two dual degree programs that we currently host.
Thank you. All right. And so, again, we're going to take the questions on as they come into the chat. We have another follow up, and I think this was in relation to our discussion about holistic review. What role does clinical experience play in selection? I think we've addressed this a few times in different ways. But let's say, for example, if an applicant didn't have the highest GPA but had extensive in-practice service, how would their chances be affected? Perhaps if you'd like to reframe what we may have addressed previously.
Sarah, I don't mind going first
Okay, yeah, go for it.
if you want. That's a very I would consider that a very black and white question, and I really don't have a black and white answer for you because do our students in our program, have they been successful through the application process that do not have pristine, and you define in your own mind what pristine means, GPAs? Absolutely. We have students in our program that that might have less than a 3.7 or a 3.6 or even a 3.5 GPA. Again, the GPAs are not considered by the Selections Review Committee, although certainly they weigh into the overall evaluation of the applicant. It's difficult to say how extensive in-practice experience would counter, if you will, a less than what you would prefer GPA rating or average, and so because the entire application is reviewed, it is quite possible for an applicant that has a lower GPA to be quite competitive in the pool based on the other components of the application. All through the admissions process, those components within the application are reviewed by rubric with a certain number of points available for each one of those components. Those reviewers of that particular individual's document, application document, will decide by rubric what they feel the student earned on that particular category. So the GPA that seems to be maybe a little bit of a concern to the applicant does not necessarily by itself keep that applicant's application from being competitive based on and depending what else the applicant has shared about themselves through the application.
And I think Dr. Glendon Mays just added so much good takeaways there. I think the big thing is for us as well is that our whole process, once a student meets that 2.9 GPA in the application cycle, in that they've maintained it through interview days and whatnot, we are going to look solely at life experiences and life attributes for our students. So if you're more heavily on the clinical side, veterinary experience, we want to know about it, and that could be a deciding factor for our students coming in. A big part of that is how does that student align with our mission, because we are looking for students that want to go into the rural and regional communities of Texas, and does that clinical experience, life attributes align with that mission? So I think Dr. Mays hit it on the head. Like, this is a very black and white, and unfortunately there's not a black and white answer for that. It's up to the individual to show us what they're involved in and how we can assess them based on those experiences. But for us, no one sees the GPA except for myself and the dean again, and hopefully that helped clear things up for you.
Wonderful, and thank you both very much for addressing that question. I think we get it often, and it, as you both have said, it's a black and white question, but it's not going to be a black and white answer. So if you have any questions about the application out there, we did do our veterinary application workshop last week. So if you are curious about finding out what opportunities you have and highlighting your different experiences throughout the application, our team has gone section by section of the application to make sure that you understand some of the common pitfalls and opportunities for you as an applicant to really highlight who you are and what you bring to the table. And on the conversation of application, here's a big one. When should an applicant submit their application? So for this cycle, the applications will open on May 2nd, and the veterinary school deadline is September 16th. So along that timeline, you do have to keep in mind secondary applications, the Casper situational judgment test, which we will definitely get into right after this, and other components of your application. So what date do you all recommend an applicant submit their TMDSAS application?
I'll go first because ours is a little different. So we encourage students to apply early. So sooner you can get it in, the sooner we can evaluate you for your secondary application. So students apply through TMDSAS to begin the process. Once that's submitted, they will assess it within 2 to 4 weeks, I believe. And then from there, our students will be able to apply to the secondary. It's by invitation through our cycle. So instead of going to our main website and applying at the same time, it's only by invitation. Reason for that is because we're verifying Texas residency. That's a big component for our students to apply, as well as New Mexico residency. And so that TMDSAS helps us verify that. As for date, September 16th is the deadline. So I would say if you can get it in a month before then, that'd be great. But our secondary application will close October 14th.
I guess my answer is whenever you believe that you have that application as polished and pristine and shiny as you can possibly make it. I will also add that there's no benefit for applying early. I would also caution that you don't want to wait till the last minute either, because internets do crash, and there is a deadline. And if all of those I's and dots and T's and crosses aren't completed within that window of opportunity, then you missed out, perhaps. So to apply at a particular or by a particular timeline or time frame or deadline, it's whatever TMDSAS it has established as the end of the application cycle window. Again, if you have an opportunity to review or make an opportunity to review your application once you have decided that you've documented everything that's relevant and pertinent as far as those informational pieces go, then go ahead and push the submit button.
Well, thank you both for addressing that. I think that's the elephant in the room, is figuring out when the application should be submitted. And as we mentioned earlier, it does take TMDSAS about 2 to 4 weeks to process an application. And then, of course, Sarah stated that at Texas Tech, they wait until the application is transmitted to them to send out a secondary application. And so you as the applicant want to make sure that you're submitting earlier than the deadline. The deadline is the last possible day for you to submit. And while there is no benefit to submitting on May 16th, the very first day you could possibly submit, you definitely do not want to wait until that deadline, because you're up against a lot of pressure at that point. Last year we had a whole hurricane that came by and disrupted our deadline, and there are just so many moving parts after the fact. So you want to make sure that you're allowing yourself sufficient time to submit a quality application, that super shiny application, as Dr. Mays mentioned, that really reflects who you are. But you also want to balance that against submitting your application in without having to feel pressured at the tail end to get the secondary application sent to you and then completing it and submitting a thoughtful secondary application, as well as making sure that you have allotted yourself enough time to do well on the Casper situational assessment test, which is my segue for our next question. How does your school use Casper? Both schools use Casper, and so we're curious to find out what that means for an applicant.
I'll go first. That's okay.
Perfect.
So Casper for us, the easiest way I can explain it to students is that it's a part of the admission requirements, but not an admissions decision component, meaning that we are still so new and we are assessing how this component impacts our students. And so right now it's not impacting that admissions decision to be in the program. However, it is an admissions requirement because we're pulling that data. We want to know, is this going to be viable for us in the future? And so this next cycle coming up, it's you do have to complete the Casper. Right now, our deadline is set for September 29th. And so we encourage students to go ahead and take that test. And I don't know if anyone knows what Casper is, but I can talk about that real quick. It's a situational judgment exam. There's no right or wrong answer with that. And it tests in 4 different areas, like your ethics and integrity based, to see how you would react in various scenarios. So I would encourage you to go ahead and get that in when the application's open. So it's done early, but it's not due for us until September 29th.
My computer booted me off, I guess. It's good to be back. The Casper assessment was added to our requirements for applicants the last cycle, and as Sarah mentioned, that's new for us as it is for their evaluation process. So we are utilizing the Casper evaluation as part of the assessment of the applicants to say or to know at this point how weighted that might be into the future. I do not know. The committee review process is still considering the information, much like Sarah said, that is gained through the Casper evaluation process. And so right now we are utilizing that. It is a requirement for the applicant to be considered. And we are utilizing it how to what degree, and going forward, what is that going to look like? I simply am not sure.
Well, you both just quashed so many conspiracy theories about Casper and the Texas Veterinary School. I'm sure there are some disappointed folks, but I think I heard the collective sigh of relief out there from all our veterinary applicants. Thank you for tackling that. We have a follow-up question regarding the application cycle, and this is from Jaylene. Can I still apply this cycle if we meet the requirements after taking summer 2022 classes? I still have time to submit my application before the September 16th deadline. So I think the question here is, submitting the application before their summer courses are even complete, which would include requirement courses.
I'll be happy to go first if you don't mind, Sarah. So our review process will or does dictate that all the prerequisite courses must be completed by the conclusion of the spring semester of the application cycle that the individual intends to apply within. That's hard for me. Every time I say that, it sounds confusing to myself. Specifically to answer your question, if some of your prerequisite course requirements will be completed during the summer, of your application or the cycle that you hope to apply to the program, then you would not have qualified because those courses had not been completed by the end of the spring semester. So I'll try to briefly reiterate, all of the prerequisite courses must be completed by the conclusion of the spring semester of the application cycle in which you're applying.
Yeah, and so for us, it's the same. We ask that students complete spring up to the spring semester before they matriculate in. If they're completing summer courses, the year that they've been accepted into that, those courses would not be accepted. And let me rephrase that. Those that are going to be matriculating in to the program that summer prior to coming in, that's when courses are not being taken. So they must be completed by the end of this spring semester. So if you are applying this upcoming cycle, May through September, and you're taking courses, we will accept those, as well as your fall semester courses and your spring semester courses. And I believe you can go into your application after and update those and let us know what you're taking. And then once you interview, you will be invited to submit your transcripts for verification of those courses. So yes, you can still complete requirements of those prerequisites as you're applying through the cycle. It's just a matter of communicating to us by the end of the spring semester that you've met all those prerequisite requirements. And then one note I'll add is that students do have to maintain the GPA requirement of the 2.9 and for overall science, as well as having a C or above in those courses.
Great. Thank you both for the clarification. Just to drive that home real quick, we have an applicant who will submit an application for entry next year, entry year 2023. They start their application May 2nd of this year. By that May 2nd, they should have already completed their prerequisites if they're applying to Texas A&M, correct, Dr. Mays?
That is correct.
And if you are applying to Texas Tech School of Veterinary Medicine, you would have until next spring in order to complete those. And for you all applying, you do enter all of each semester where you've taken courses into the application. And there's also a separate section of the application where you enter planned coursework. So if you're applying to Texas Tech and you still have coursework that is still pending, that's where you would notify the school that you have coursework that will continue to fulfill certain prerequisites. So thank you both for that clarification. All right. We have a question about the reviews and kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of what happens behind the scenes. How many total reviewers have input into each vet application? So we clear one conspiracy theory and open up another.
Glenn, Dr. Mays, do you want to go for it?
Sure. So each applicant's document is reviewed by two members independently within the selections committee membership. Those reviewers are unaware of who their co-reviewer is for that particular applicant.
I'm counting in my head how many. So we do a whole screening process to consider students for interviews. And I believe, if I'm counting correctly, 5 to 6 faculty or community partners are reviewing that part. As for interviews, we have another 6 that review the interview part. And then we have about 14 admission committee members that assist at the final selection process. And each one is assigned a student to review what comments have been made through the screening, through the interview, and then through the selection. So a lot of people review those application. So you get a holistic review in that just from our team.
All right, thank you.
And Ricky, let me rethink that question, or my response to the question about the prerequisite course completion.
Yes, sir.
I'm still not sure that I clearly explained that. The prerequisite courses can be completed by the end of the spring semester for which the applicant would enter the professional program.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I wasn't sure if I was understanding correctly.
I certainly hope that makes sense.
Yes, sir. So bringing back that scenario where, in fact, we'll bring back the question where we have an applicant who is still taking coursework into this summer, but will be applying to matriculate to veterinary school next year. This applicant would be able to apply to both Texas Tech and Texas A&M veterinary schools.
What we're trying to avoid is the applicant who might have been invited to join our professional program that still requires or has not completed one prerequisite or two, whatever, course requirements that they plan to complete in the summer before they begin the program in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And something goes haywire and they don't pass.
Yes.
Then we have to withdraw that application invitation or that matriculation invitation. That's the reason for completing it the end of spring semester before they would enter the program the following fall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification. All right. We have to make some time to discuss the veterinary evaluation form. This is something that is unique to our veterinary applicants. What insights can you provide applicants as they are reaching out to folks who will be filling out the veterinary evaluation form? What do you look for? What guidance can you offer as these evaluators are completing the form?
Sarah, do you want to go?
Sure, I'll take it. So for us, first and foremost, we need a veterinarian to evaluate, to complete evaluation form. And the biggest thing I would say to students as they're selecting those evaluators is to make sure that they know who you are. If you've only spent a month with them versus a year or 6 months, they may not be able to speak towards the questions that they'll ask. And so I would say know someone or choose someone that knows your character, that can speak to maybe all the experiences that that you've worked closely with. And, we always preference it again with, somebody that could see you as a future colleague and can speak towards you being in the veterinary practice. We've seen all kinds of evaluation letters. And a lot of what we're looking for is one, again, that a veterinarian writes it. But if you have a faculty member or a boss that knows your character as well, those are good too. So just, really think hard about who knows you well and who can speak well of you.
I like those comments and echo those comments as well, Sarah. The thing that I sometimes suggest to students is, of course, choose wisely and frame it however is comfortable for you. But it might sound something like, I'm applying to a veterinary program. I would really love it I would be so appreciative if you would be able to provide for me a very, very strong reference. I also know how terribly busy you are. So if you simply do not think you have the time for this, I totally receive that. I respect that. And I will choose someone else. What I hope is transpiring with that kind of a dialogue is I've made it clear, I've tried to make it clear as an applicant, I want a strong reference from you. And if that's not something that you really feel you can provide on my behalf, I've given you an out by simply telling me I would love to do that, but doggone it, I'm just too busy. So I sometimes see or read those responses from those evaluators, and the response to some of those prompts on behalf of the candidate is very short. Maybe it's a one-word response, and they go on to the next prompt. Makes me curious if that individual providing that report on that individual candidate is really not that supportive of them, or are they just simply so busy they're trying to get this off their plate and go on to the next task that they've got to do. We require three individuals to provide a reference on behalf of the candidate, at least one of which must be a veterinarian, not just somebody down the street that the person happens to know, but a veterinarian that they've established and have some sort of a relationship with. And none of the providers or evaluators can be a family member. So that's what I have to suggest.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, because that's great advice, Dr. Mays. And for us, again, no family members. Mom can't write the letter. And we, sometimes if they're too busy, to always have a backup plan. So maybe ask, three, but if you have that fourth one on mind, let them know just in case it doesn't get in by the deadline.
And I think that answers the question that we had here. Any restrictions on who can provide a reference? Veterinarian who's in the family. So perfectly answered. Y'all are very proactive with getting to the needs and questions that our applicants are getting to.
We don't exclude faculty. If that candidate has a relationship with a current faculty member in our program, that reference is accepted. It seems like every cycle, even though it's posted on our website very plainly, there's one or two individuals that will invite a family member to provide an evaluation and those applications are just simply not reviewable. They don't qualify.
Thank you.
And it's the same for us. They can write from any of our SBM faculty.
Excellent. Well, we are down to the last couple of minutes here with our discussion and panel. Before we head out, I do want to offer each of you an opportunity to just address the entire veterinary applicant pool, see if you have any insights or just last minute words of encouragement.
Well, I'll go first, Dr. May, sorry. For us, we're rooting for you guys. We want you to be successful in this. I know it's a competitive process, but you can reach out to our school, ask questions. We have a application workshop specifically for the SBM that's going to be on May 4th at 5:30 that we just posted. And so I can put that in the chat if you guys are interested in RSVPing. But again, if you have questions, concerns, anything that's come up, let us know. We're happy to help you. And we're excited for filling our third class for the class of 2023.
Thank you. Dr. Mays?
Yes, may I add something in the chat, or do I not have that privilege?
If you have a link to share in the chat, we can definitely drop it in.
Okay. I was just going to offer a couple of email addresses for people to reach out if they have further questions after this is digested. Let me push this one, and sorry, I don't type very fast. Um, there's a couple of email addresses. One is my email address. The other one is Ms. Yolanda Brinkman, who's our admissions coordinator. She's been helping candidates for a probably more than she would like to remember, a number of years. Each of us, either of us, are happy to receive queries or questions or comments from any of you, and we certainly will respond to those. We also host an applicant workshop, which is on the other end of the process. So applicants who were not invited to the program, if they are interested, they can attend a workshop, which actually I believe is this Saturday. So if they were in last year or previous application cycles and were not invited to the program, those applicants will receive individual scores, or the scores on the individual compartments of the application, as how that individual's score compared to the average score of the applicants that were invited to our program. The idea, of course, would be to help an individual identify areas, at least in that former application cycle, where maybe their application could be improved. So it might be a little bit more competitive in the future, presuming that they intend to apply again.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for your time and just wonderful insights and thoughtful responses to the questions we had today. I hope that you watching a recording of this or watching live know and recognize just the amazing collaboration that our veterinary schools have with TMDSAS, and making sure that you as an applicant are well supported each step of the way. And so on behalf of the Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine and the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine, the Texas Health Education Service, and TMDSAS, we wish each of you all the best of luck this application cycle. And just know that we are here to help you however you may need. And we look forward to seeing your application starting May 2nd. Thank you both so much again for taking the time to join us today.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.